am here today to talk to you about my career path and my career journey, and hopefully to maybe inspire you. That's my ultimate goal. What I'm not here to do is to show you a portfolio of the work I've done. I think that a lot of times when presentations are given, that can get a little boring. I'm quite sure that everybody here in this room is far more talented than me and has a far greater, more beautiful portfolio. So if you've come here to just see a lot of my work, I'm going to disappoint you. I'm sorry. But there is a little bit of it in there, and more than anything, like I said, I'm just here to share a little bit of my journey. So I call this talk A View from the Inside Out, and I call it that because, as Marve had said, I have had the experience of working both in-house for a variety of different institutions, and I've also worked in more of an agency, creative design studio. So I have been, inside and outside. So I want to talk to you a little bit about that. Starting with, hold on.
I help you.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
How about that?
Just watch that one.
There we go. Well, that's good enough. All right. So I'm a creative director and a brand strategist, and that's me. So, hello. Right now I'm working in-house for Otis College of Art and Design, as I said, but how I got here was a little bit different than most, I suppose. Does anybody recognize anything that you're seeing here in this family at all? Oh, good. I know I was dating myself, so you all know how old I am. But so in the 80s, I watched this sitcom called Who's the Boss? That was the head of the household of this sitcom was this woman, Angela Bauer, and she had an advertising agency. And the beauty of this sitcom was that she was a female business owner and a single mom, and she was looking for a housekeeper, and she hired a man. And so this might not seem like a big deal today, but in the 80s, to somebody like me who was not from the United States, I was an immigrant and I had come to the United States with my family, I was like, what? You mean a lady can have an advertising business and be a boss? So that's why I call her the OG boss lady. And I found this photo of her on Pinterest, and I thought it was great because the woman who put it up there says, I was so going to be Angela Bauer when I grew up, without the poofy hair, of course. But I just want to say that I want her poofy hair, too. Angela Bauer used to give these presentations to her clients, and I remember one of her clients one day was Betty White, the comedian, which was great. And she would get up and give pitches and, had these art boards. And I was like, I don't know what that is, but that's what I want to do. And so flash forward to several years later, I was in school studying advertising, communication arts, and it was right before everything went digital, so certainly we were doing things like printmaking and learning how to use our hands, much more so than I think a lot of students are doing today. They're going straight into learning how to use the software. And I'm in school, and everybody knows that when you're in school, you're poor. You're like pinching pennies. And so I used to spend a lot of time at the Goodwill. Yes, love the Goodwill. And I found this. Does anybody recognize this print or this graphic? Well, this was done by a woman named Sister Carita. And Sister Carita comes from Los Angeles. So I bought this print for $4.99. I still have it today. It's still in my office. It's been in every office that I've had. And I took that print and I was like, who did this? Who is this woman? And I found out that Sister Carita was a nun, an educator, a printmaker, a graphic designer, and a social change maker. And I also found out that she was doing this in Los Angeles, which is where I wanted to move to and where I wanted to start my career. So after I finished school, I got the opportunity to do that. And this is where I worked. In this beautiful Art Deco building in Culver City's downtown arts district. I was in a boutique design studio with other creatives and other designers. It was, they had rehabbed this gorgeous old building for creative people to come and work. There were dogs. There were, a lot of bright windows and natural light and all the things that you want to have to be inspired and to, really just launch your career. I had the most wonderful boss who is still my mentor to this day, and I worked there for 9 years and really learned what it was to become a creative professional and to lead creative teams and to take my love of art and make it into something that was profitable because, I'm also an immigrant and I am from Iran, and let me just tell you that in Iran they don't think that artists are real professionals. Unless you're an engineer or a doctor or a lawyer, you kind of don't really work. So I had to make this job a job, right? And this team of people here at the studio helped me do that. And after 9 years, it was time to make a change. And so I got a new job. And this was where I worked. Not exactly in the dollar store, but just above it was my office. I went to work downtown in a shopping center that was owned by USC, and I took a jump to go and work for my client. USC had been my client while I was at the agency. They hired me to come in-house and build an in-house design team for them. So I went from being amongst a group of other artists and creative professionals to being the only creative professional. I went from being in a small studio space that was very nurturing to working for the largest private employer in Southern California. And the best way I could really put that term, the best way I can define it for you in a term is creative culture shock. I had no idea where to go, what to do. Everything around me changed. There were no more dogs in the office. There was no more beautiful, lighting, and there was no more nurturing environment. My brainstorming session with designers and, using Post-its and art and sketches went from, this really collaborative experience to just 1-hour meetings in conference rooms. It was shocking. And during that time, I decided, what? I've got to get my head around this, and just like every other challenge that we all have or every new endeavor, I started to research what it takes to build an in-house design team, what it means to be an in-house design creative, and everything that I read, every webinar that I attended, every presentation that I saw used this word: challenging. Being in-house, being an in-house art director is so challenging. Being in-house as an artist is so challenging. And everybody loves a good challenge. Everybody needs challenge. That's a part of growth, right? But I just couldn't really understand why it seemed so negative in this context. Why it seemed like it was less than, or that I was settling. I didn't feel any of those things. I felt like, in fact, I had a big opportunity in front of me. And that's what I'm here to talk to you about today. Working for this institution gave me a huge opportunity. My first month, there I am in my office above the dollar store, and somebody from facilities walks in and says to me, "Hey, just so you know, there's a supply closet next to your office, and we're cleaning it out. If there's anything of yours in there, you'd better get it out, because we're cleaning it out." He had no idea that I was brand new. And I'm a curious character, so I was like, yeah, I better go in there and check it out. Got to see what's in that supply closet. And I think I kind of just wanted to see if like I could expand my office or something. Like what are they going to do with that space? So I get in there and, you know, it's mostly junk, but I uncover a box. And at the top of the box is this photo. Thank you. I'm so glad someone knows this person, because I did too. This is a photo of the great designer, Sal Bass, legendary designer. So I find this photo in this box, and he's holding a photo, or he's holding a copy of the university's graphic identity guidelines, which he did in 1994. It was one of the last projects he worked on before he passed away. In digging through this box, I find a binder full of correspondence between Sal Bass and the university, documenting the trajectory of this project from start to finish. You know, in 1994, it was sort of before email was really a thing. So a lot of the stuff was faxes and typed up correspondence. Pages and pages of it. I mean, there was a fax from Sal Bass's office to Pantone. You know, talking, how many of you are familiar with Pantone, the ink management system, right? So Sal Bass is telling Pantone, like, I'm not too thrilled with your red. If you could just change the shade here for me. You know, can you imagine sending a fax to Pantone today and being like, yeah, you know, that color's just not working for me, you know? So here I am sitting in this supply closet with this box, and I'm feeling like I was meant to find it. And right then and there, I knew that yet again, this was an opportunity. I devoured every piece of information in that binder. I learned every challenge and every step that Sal Bass, the legendary designer, took, and everything he faced to get through this project and to build this graphic identity system for the school, this is what it looked like. But in 2010, when I'm looking in that box, the identity system for the university had degraded to this. So I put system up there, but really the reality is this is not a system. And I knew that I had to do right by Sal Bass. I had some big shoes to fill, that I couldn't do it alone, but that I had an opportunity. So I put together a scope, a project plan, an outline, a production timeline, and I went to the university and I said, it's time to redo this identity, and here's what I need. I knew that it took Sal Bass 18 months from start to finish to work on that project, so I felt asking for 12 was appropriate. They said I could do it, but they gave me 4 months. 4. I had just started. I had no team. I had no help. But yet again, I had another opportunity. I hired my design heroes. I hired Pentagram Design. They're a branding firm. I'm sure many of you are familiar with them, but for those of you that aren't, they're international, and they've done some of the finest work that to me is out there in graphic design today. So I hired Pentagram to help me because I was on my own, and I knew that I couldn't do it by myself and be right by the person who had started this initiative in 1994. And with Pentagram's help, we took the design system from this to this, which is what it is still today, and from this to this. It didn't happen overnight. We got the first part of the project done in 4 months to meet our deadline. But for the next 9 years, my job was implementing that new identity. And I could show you 1,000 slides with all the work that went into it. But in one, I can also show you that I needed to make this identity system work across every school, every employee, all 80,000 of them, every office internationally, from publications to posters to wine labels to billboards. And even perhaps to the biggest project I worked on for them, which is right here downtown. A sign that was, I don't know, maybe like 10 times bigger than I was, so it was really, really intimidating. For the next 9 years, I implemented this graphic identity system to things like the flagship publication for the university, which looked like this and was then redesigned to look like this. And the reason why I'm showing you these is they're two very similar types of stories, but you can see how they're now being told visually in a different, more contemporary way. Stories that used to be told like this, and there's nothing wrong with this, but we've seen it before. We've seen this conference room shot before. And we've seen this before. Really cute man with the dog, and you know, he has a heart condition. We started to tell the stories like this. Bringing in illustrators. Channeling Sister Carita, right? So that instead of telling a story by showing a patient and a doctor and a device, it was being shown through art, through concept. Same idea here. The story was about obesity. But instead of showing it by the doctor or the research or the statistics, we said, what if we show junk food? Just really bright, vivid colors to make the reader engaged. And then as they're reading about what glucose does to your body, and you're seeing that junk food and you're kind of getting sick, right? I have a little bit of a dark side. Commissioning other immigrants like myself who don't do traditional types of work, who work in mixed media and collage, and bringing them into the magazine. This magazine goes to 300,000 print subscribers and 250,000 digital subscribers. This became an avenue and a vehicle for me to help my fellow artists get their names out. That was really important to me, and that was an opportunity. This is an artist whose gallery opening I went to. His name is John Knuth. And I nervously kind of went up to him to tell him what a fan I was, and he said, oh, where do you work? And I said, USC, and he said, I graduated from USC, which I had no idea. I come to find out that John Knuth had a biology undergrad degree. He studied biology, and then he went on to get an MFA. And the artwork that he was doing took his biology background, where he would harvest flies, house flies, in his studio. He was making house flies in his studio. And then he was feeding them this non-toxic sugar paint. And he knew that every time a housefly lands on something, it regurgitates. So he would allow these flies to land on these huge canvases, just like the one that he's sitting in front of. And they made these incredible patterns. I wanted to tell his story. I wanted this artist to be known. I wanted to have that opportunity. And then I also wanted to put together some really icky looking gifts so that, you know, I could get my dark side in there. So today I'm at Otis College of Art and Design, and this is now where my office is, so things are looking up. I was pretty excited when I found out that that I was actually going to be in this office, because the reality is that I actually knew about this building. It was originally designed by Elliott Noyes for IBM. It was the original IBM aerospace campus here in Los Angeles. And Elliott Noyes designed this building based on the IBM punch card. So you can see how he took this idea of the punch card and brought it into the building, which is also now part of Otis's logo. So I have this new job, and you know, I research just like I did when I was at USC, and I'm trying to find out a little bit more about the background of the place I'm working at, and I learned about Thomas Watson and how he hired Elliott Noyes, who hired Paul Rand, Eero Saarinen, and Charles and Ray Eames. And this group of individuals were really a part of what became IBM's design powerhouse supergroup. These incredible artists all came together to make IBM the company that it still is today. And I did know a lot about these people. I mean, you know, a lot of them, Charles and Ray Eames, are part of the fabric of art in Los Angeles, right? But I didn't know about these guys. Oh. Sorry guys, bear with me. That slide went quick, but those three guys, they worked in-house at IBM. And this is what I came across, is their work. It's a poster campaign that took them 10 years. And it was done for employee communication. And it still stands today. If I were to produce something like this today, I'd be so proud of it. I'm still inspired by it. And I loved knowing that it was an in-house team that made this happen. I loved this sense of these guys getting together and putting together this campaign. It took them 10 years, and I'm sure it wasn't easy. But here we are 40, 50 years later, and I'm discovering it, and I'm sitting in the building that had something to do with their legacy, and it's really, really inspiring. So what I'm here to tell you is that I really feel as artists and as creatives, we have this unmatched opportunity to inspire. And it doesn't happen overnight. It's about an evolution, not a revolution. It's not easy, but if you feel it at your core, it happens. And it's about leadership. I came across this quote that I want to leave you with. It says, "The decision to lead is the point of origin for every great thing that has ever existed. You only discover what you're truly capable of as your influence scales." This guy who wrote this wrote a book called Herding Tigers. He's a designer and an artist in a management position. So he wrote this book about what it means to try to be a manager when you're really an artist on the inside. And that's something that I can relate to. And I think you can all relate to. And you all will relate to if you haven't yet. But the truth is that just like Sister Carita and some of Sal Bass and all the other artists that I talked about in this talk, if you use your creativity to lead and to inspire others, that can be your greatest legacy. Thank you.
There is a Maurice Ravel, the composer, one time say, if I want to talk about art, I will sit down with my banker. If I want to talk about money, I will sit down with another artist. We are always worried about money. Okay, so I got here in 1983, I guess, at the end of 1983, and scared. I don't know what to do. I have no idea about the English. I have no idea about where to go. I had a family, so I was lucky enough that I started working at a Salicrup studio, very small. So I learned where to get the materials, I got to learn the city, I got to learn the system here. In Colombia, I was active as an artist, but not up to the full extent that I was able to do here. So anyway, after a year, I decided to open a studio, to open my own studio. I started in my garage. My first client gave me a deposit. When I went to see my first client, he was a publisher. He was managing some artists. So he gave me a deposit of, at that time was $5,000. I never forget that check. I went straight to the bank and cashed the check. And he knew I was in my garage, and I forgot to mention that I was working out of my garage. I got a nice studio. I set up a nice silk screen studio in my garage. I was making everything there. Very nice, very professional. And when he went to see me a couple of weeks later, he almost fainted. I thought you had a studio. I said, well, I have a studio here. So anyway, I started working day and night, and he said, okay, listen, if I don't like the print, I was printing 500 pieces. Like 40 colors or 50 colors, and the registration has to be well if you are familiar with printmaking. Anyway, started working day and night. The print was very successful. He was very happy. The second time he went to see me, he was so happy. He said, that's great. His office was, I think, was in Encino, and I was up in close to Orange County, Norwalk. So he said, listen, I don't have the checkbook with me, but I'm gonna go and bring the checkbook. And at that time, I didn't realize how nice was of him to go from Norwalk to Encino and come back to give me a check. Anyway, that was the beginning. I don't have a picture of the garage. I don't have pictures of the garage. Then I moved to a space in Martin Luther King in front of the Coliseum. I started there. I built a reputation with artists. I was printing for artists, for dealers that they manage artists from different parts of the United States. So there was a steady supply of work. That was the first table that I had. I was able to get 2 helpers at that time, and there was no computer, no camera, so everything was done by hand. All the what we call films, milers, they were done by hand. I used to work at night doing the color separation, and then the next day we print. The beauty of printmaking is that the emotion when you put the first color or when you lift the paper from the etching press is always the same. You know, after 30 years, I still feel the same emotion. When I lift the paper, I'm so happy, and then I realize that there are like 3 or 4 mistakes. But at the first, when I lift the paper, I'm jumping of joy. So. Besides that, I was always thinking why I like printmaking. I grew up in Colombia, in South America, that there was a lot of inequality, kind of what we are seeing today here, starting to see here. And I was always concerned about the role of art in society. To me, art is kind of elitist. Sometimes if you are a painter, you cannot buy your own paintings. You cannot afford to buy your own paintings. And also your paintings are always going to the people that have money. Nothing wrong with having money. There are beautiful people that have money, very smart. And no, there are people that are very smart, very, very compassionate, that happen that they make money, and that's perfectly fine. And but also, what about the other people? Yeah. Like us, that we cannot buy $10,000, $20,000 painting. So I saw that printmaking give us the opportunity to produce multiples and to make the art accessible. Besides that, you know, 100 years ago, anyone with a printing press can start a revolution. That was very nice. So then it became more complicated. The studio, we got better equipment, we have to be faster. That was before digital printing. I print for artists. I was familiar with self-help graphics. This is George Yepes, an artist from East LA, born in East LA and was active on East LA. There was a cover for an album of Los Lobos. That was a big painting. We did a limited edition. I did this piece for Liechtenstein. This piece was a nightmare, 237 colors. 237 colors. So all separated by hand, all the stencils cut by hand. I remember I was cutting the windows of the Empire State Building one Sunday. I start like 8 in the morning and I finish like 1 in the morning, just one color. So we always try to do an easy colors, like cut 3-4 stencils and have enough for the people to print or for whoever was printing. And that way we have time to get ahead and produce more stencils. I always found even if my passion is art and I consider myself kind of an artist, I always was so happy to work with another artist. It was challenging, even if I wasn't crazy about the art. The fact that I was doing the prints was always rewarding, always a challenge. I didn't mind to work with another artist. That was another piece that we did for Marco Stavi. We did many pieces, but this is one example. That's a piece that we did for an artist from Spain. The one was like 170 colors. We print 450 pieces, and most of the pieces was the first time that the pieces were going to Japan. That was kind of in the 80s, late 80s, 90s. And we were surprised that out of the 450, we got like 20 pieces back. That never happened to us because we used to use gloves, and you know, these pieces were selling for, this piece I think was selling for, at that time, for $4,000, $5,000. So the dealer was very nervous, everything has to be clean. And that was experience. We went to Japan because we got a list of the reasons why the print were rejected, the 25 print were rejected, and we couldn't find anything wrong. We were with goggles looking at the prints, and then someone translate for us the notes, and they say, linked on the upper right corner. And we couldn't find the link. And they say, no, look at diagonal, at the print diagonally, with the light going that way, so it's amazing. So we end up almost with building a clean room to do those prints, especially at the end when we put a varnish. We end up doing like a clean room and do that. Then I ventured into etching, doing etchings, and it was different because etchings are more intimate. You cannot, I wasn't able to do a really big scale production of etchings. I work mostly by myself on doing the etchings. Curating an etching that I did for an artist from China, very talented. That's another etching that I did for George Yepes. The name of this piece is Soy Legal. Soy Legal. And that was a multiple color. We did, I think I did 3 plates. That's another piece that I did for that artist from China, a very good friend of mine, very talented. That's one of my drawings that I did in etching. When I had the big shop, I don't call employees, I don't like that the group was like 10 people, but still at night I used to have drawing sessions every 2 weeks, and I always kept that passion alive, even that I was super busy. Then, like in 2000, well, we had to close the studio in 2000. It was impossible to keep that operation going. That's why I admire Surface Graphics. It's a model of how an organization can function and can have an impact on a social impact on the community. So after I closed the studio in 2000, I was a little bit up in the air, don't know what to do. One day I went to a homeless shelter, and I started talking to the people there, and I found so interesting the persons there. I connect with them. I saw how they end up living on the streets, and the thing that impacted me the most is that the feeling that they have of being invisible, of being nobody, losing all their dignity, all the skills. When I was talking to them, they were talking about what they did, what they achieved before they went to living on the streets. So even for myself, I did it. I have to be honest. I did it also for myself. I got the idea of doing a group, a printmaking group. We were doing linoleum. Was the easier way, less material, less chemicals. They can take the linoleum and cut themselves. So we started a group with a group of former homeless persons. That was the group. Very rewarding. I think it's one of the most rewarding things I have done in my life. For myself, I feel validated as an artist. I feel validated as an artist. Then we start doing little prints. I never print for them. I teach them. I want them to be responsible. I want them to. I never print for them. We did an edition of each edition was 20 pieces, super clean, super nice. They learned how to do it. I just showed them the first time around, and then they did it by themselves. And then I found that we need to have an end result, because they put so much effort in the group. They were so punctual. They help a lot. Even one of them one time I say, okay, listen, I'm gonna bring material next Wednesday, and the guy say, I got $20 if you need it. No, you can give it back. You can give me back the $20 on Wednesday. I said, no, that's fine. So anyway, we did a series of shows. We did like 4 exhibits with them. One of the exhibits was in a beautiful gallery that Los Angeles Printmaking Society had at that time. And look at them. They were so happy, so proud that they, even if they were not exhibiting that day, they were supporting the other people that were exhibiting. They got the best clothes. They went to a used store or clothes that were donated, and everybody showed up. Nobody believed. Everybody thought that he was a basketball player. Very talented friend. He's a poet. Very talented poet. He's an artist. That's another lady. Then we come up with the idea of the self-portrait. So we took a picture of each one of them, the same picture, same light, and then from there we evolved. Everyone create their own narrative on the linoleum. Then I went back. This is my drawings. I think that drawing is the foundation of every art that we do. And like someone say, art is one. There are just different disciplines. I don't know if it's an advantage to be so interested in different techniques or a disadvantage, but it's something that I cannot control myself. I always feel that way. Then I produced bronzes, I did commissions. I like commissions, I like art that, I like when the art has a function, that I like when I see that there is that it has a purpose besides communicating the message. So I did challenging because I never tried this before, doing a portrait of people that I didn't knew. So I did Cesar Chavez, Dolores Huerta, Plácido Domingo, Benito Juárez. By the way, when I met Dolores Huerta, I was so impressed. First time in my life that I met a leader. I have met people, politicians, but not a leader. 84, she was there talking, and after 2 minutes, 2 minutes after she started talking, everybody was standing up. Amazing. So this is the closing of my trajectory. I hope it's interesting. Have been interesting for me, very interesting for me. And going back to what she said, one time one student in high school asked me a question. I said, listen, I want to study art. My parents are completely against. And I told him, well, they might have a point. So you have to think about, put yourself in their shoes. They might have a point, but also you have to explore and let them know. You have to explore and let them know that there are so many fields in art that you can be successful. You can be an educator, you can be managing a beautiful place like this, you can work in a museum, you can do lectures that are not just painted. Also, you can be producing bronzes. Bronzes are very demanding to produce. The bronze melt at 2,000, almost 2,000 degrees, so the process of producing bronzes are very complicated. That's something that another career. And I want to end up thank you to Circle Graphics for being here. I always admired this place. I think it's a model. It's one model of how a non-profit organization with the resources of a non-profit can have an impact on a city. I know many artists that pass through Circle Graphics, and I think that Circle Graphics have been creating a history for Los Angeles. Thank you.
Hi everyone, thanks for being here and giving me this opportunity to actually be in front of you. And I want to say maestros, okay? So, oh my God, I feel so humbled to be here. So,
hey, I'm too young, don't call me maestro.
Well, one of the things I noticed in your photos is actually you have actual hair. Okay, I have none, and I'm 35 years old, okay? So, you know, I want to say thank you to you guys, Self-Help Graphics, and all the people involved in this beautiful summit. So, I'm from San Antonio, I'm teaching there, so they invited me to come here and share some of my time, some of my experience as an educator and artist, to share it with you. And probably we're going to share some things that's a little bit similar, and some of the things probably, what I call it, a little bit more accessible for me because I'm an instructor. But I try to give so much back to the community. One thing that I actually have to manage is I work 40 hours as an educator. And then I had to actually work 30 or 40 hours as a professional artist too as well. So basically I have 2 full times. And there's consequences for that. So one of those things actually, I got divorced because of that thing. I feel so passionate what I am, you know. I try to give so back to the community. One of the things that I experienced coming here to the United States is basically one thing that we all share with immigrants, okay? And probably there's a little bit of challenging, you know, or, certain things that you have to face in your life, either because of language, your skin color, your education, and other barriers that probably that you are gonna actually have to face with. So this is actually one of my woodcuts that I did back in my first class as a printmaker. So I was introduced to printmaking when I come here to the States. And one of the things that I noticed here in the United States, I'm come from Mexico, and I'm gonna switch to the next slide. So this is actually where I grew up. It's a small ranch. Yagualica is a bigger town, so the ranch basically, we didn't have access to education. They used to send these teachers there daily to go and teach us, you know, from 8 a.m. all the way probably to 2, 3, and after that we used to go and help our parents to actually with the ranch and stuff like that. So it was kind of like challenging for us. So and during that time, if you think about it, we didn't care so much about education because we live in a different environment. It was more about us, vacas, the cows and stuff like that. So this is actually what, that's the ranch. It's located right here, right next to Guadalajara. So, so there is, that's actually a top view of the photo. Hopefully you like that photo. But I migrated here to the United States when I was 14 years old. And one thing that I experienced is actually the culture shock, language and all that. So that actually affected me a little bit. But growing up in a ranch, I remember I used to actually work in the fields. And my dad used to water the plants, and that creates mud. And sometimes my dad, oh, mijo, just go out there and pick up all the weeds. And I was picking one by one. You know, you're a kid, you're probably 8, 9 years old. And then I used to play with the mud, building little houses, stuff like that. And that's the way I started to develop a little bit of passion for art. I didn't know that at that time was art, because nobody's telling you, you're an artist, stuff like that. Because my parents basically, they didn't have any education. The only thing they wanted to do is to bring food to the table so we can actually move forward. So my dad came here to the United States. He was here probably about 10 years of my life when I actually spent, you know, in Mexico. So I kind of grew up with that, my father. But then there's rewards. We're talking about rewards. So basically, all this time he spends here in the United States, he actually got the chance to actually got legal paperwork for us to come here in the United States, and that's the reason why I'm here, and I'm so thankful to my dad. So I'm gonna switch to the next slide. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about what I do. I do relief prints. It's something that I love it. And I got into that by accident. So basically, it's actually one of the oldest early printmaking methods actually has been done in the arts. There's all the things such as wax paintings or just frescoes, but this is actually, they used to actually do stamps to put it in the ceramic pieces. I'm gonna move on to the next one. I'm gonna try to go really quick. The Gutenberg Bible, one of the printing methods actually, they kind of like create a revolution during that time to actually print multiples. Albert Dürer, beautiful woodcuts, wood engravings too as well. So he was a master in that. So all these artists and really, you know, helping me, shape me as an artist. And Eric Heckel, so he was actually the first one to start to use linoleum as a material to actually print these beautiful artworks. And then Picasso started to use reductions. And it was actually from there, it really evolved the technique. So a few of my early influences, it was the broadsheets. And then I lived for quite some time in Aguascalientes. And Aguascalientes, they have some of Posadas small artworks. The blocks, which is actually they use, it's like a stamp, used to actually print. And I didn't know during that time, because my parents like, oh, mijo, it's Sunday, Domingo. Let's go to this museum. Okay, we used to go there. It's actually the way I was introduced to the arts too as well. But after actually working in the ranch. Luis Jimenez, I'm not sure you know Luis Jimenez. He's a pioneer of the kind of like the Chicano artists, not Chicano artists, but the Chicano movement. So he passed away, I think 2006. So, but I really love those type of artworks, and that really shaped me too as well. This is me when I still have, I don't see the top part of my head, but I used to have hair. So the way it starts, actually, I start with a sketch. And from the sketch, I actually transfer to linoleum, and then after that, I start working, carving one line at a time. So that's me. I guess I'm still chubby. So that's me. Now I have no hair, so I feel proud of that photo. Now it's the true me. So the printing process, basically, some of you guys already know it because it's relief. I'm probably gonna bore you. I'm gonna do it really quick. So other than on the left, you have the big roller. You have ink. You actually put it on top of the plate, and then you run it to the press, which is at the press, and you pull the print. This is Bill Flake, okay? He's an amazing, amazing printmaker. That's the way you make a relief print. So going back a little bit, how I started with the relief. So this is my first relief, and it's terrible, okay? So one thing, you know, that we artists, or if you're an immigrant, sometimes to be able to progress or be able to be you, or find your own style, you have to be able to have some people that can influence you or can help it to be who you are. So I started to use a little bit what my culture can offer to me, lotería. And then from there, I actually base this image right here. Si el tiempo no te mides, I'm sorry, si tú no te mides, el tiempo te mide. So basically, that was my first relief print. And it's bad, okay? So I show it to my students and they laugh at me. So that was one of the projects, the previous slide. And then the first project is my basic printmaking. And then after that, I moved on to, that was in Laredo, which is Boritano, Laredo. And then I moved to San Antonio. And San Antonio, actually went to the University of Texas, San Antonio. I did my undergrad and grad school there. So one of the projects that actually I needed to do for this exchange with all the students is to actually do a print, do a multiple, do an additional 10, I don't remember how many prints. And during that time, I was broke, okay? Literally broke. So, but then guess what? In my basic printmaking class, what I did, don't do this, okay? But I stole some materials from my professor, okay? So I had this leftover, you know, linoleum, and I had these carvers. It's like, you know what? I'm gonna use those. And I started to actually to carve little by little tiny lines, and then I did a multiple block print. And in the edition and everything, and my professor's like, wow, Juan, you're pretty good at linoleum. I was like, oh, stop it, sir. So, and then, and after that, I started to become more engaged with linoleum and started to actually do that, which is not, you see something? Nope. Oh no, don't tell me that. Oh my God, I want you to see this slide. So it's not there, but let's move on, okay? I wanted to show you that. But then I started to work more with my community, with the way I was raised with my dad. And my dad was one of those parents. They wanted to be resourceful. Okay, be rasquatch a little bit, okay? So he actually, this is some photos that actually you can find in probably everywhere. So one of the things that actually we're trying to do is be resourceful. You want to fix something, you don't have the money, you're going to fix it. You're trying to be creative to save some money. And I noticed that with my community. I wanted to actually highlight that about my community. You're going to see these guys with the mirror, you know, and over there, that guy with a chair. My dad, hopefully I have the photo here. I don't think I have it. So in Laredo, which is a border town to know Laredo, people start to get creative with that. So, so they start to be a little bit more like rasquatch, putting stuff together like that. So, and I appreciated that about my culture. We still laugh, but I love it. I love it. I don't know why I love it. So, and then you're gonna see that guy over there on the left having that bicycle. And from there, I started to actually do artworks or prints related to that specific culture, to my community, something I can give back so they can feel proud about what they do, the creativity, guys. It requires some creativity to come out stuff like that, okay? So, and then I started to do some kind of like vehicles that kind of like just made up of different things, okay? And then all the things you see there is like kind of like a hybrid culture between the American and the Mexican culture, which actually all of you guys probably been affected by a little bit if you're an immigrant, okay? You see this guy really proud and like a really, you know, like pride pose. It says La Picuda. They're gonna find a lot of stuff, okay? But one of the things that I try to do is actually add beans. I don't see any bean. Oh, this is a tiny bean. You cannot see it. It's really pixelated. But one of the things, actually, the terms is starting to affect me a little bit is I used to call me beaner. When I come here, like, coming from Mexico, what is beaner? And after a while, probably a year later, somebody told me, hey, beaner is actually you're brown. Like, no, stop it, okay? And then I started to actually relate more for the community, started to say, hey, you know, I mean, it's not to defend. I want to say defend immigrants when they actually need to cross the river, Rio Grande, illegally. How they actually, I asked myself, what would be the best way for them to cross the river, right? I want to make them feel like it's comfortable to cross the river. So I did this guy crossing the river with a low rider and being pulled by animals. And then why I have animals? Because there's always a coyote in the front. It's not going to be just one coyote. It's going to be a chicken, a goat, stuff like that, pushing the low rider. And then you see the river over there. He's crossing it really proud, you know, like, oh, where's the migra? We don't find it. It's somewhere else. And then the river guys, I live in Laredo, and Laredo's always, it's part of your daily life to actually hear stories about immigration, crossing the river illegally. So that's kind of natural, I guess. But then it started to affect me a little bit the way actually I create my artwork, and then also a little bit the vehicles. You see it, the way I put it together. So I tried to make it functional in a way that's still believable when you see in the prints. All right, I'm gonna move on. Tinaco Naco is basically this guy, really proud of Tinaco is a water tank, and then Naco is actually like this kind of like low-class person. So they used to call me Naco when I was in high school, like Naco and Beaner, come on guys, give me a break. So you see this guy really proud of what he is, you know, like he's the captain of the Tinaco is basically a water tank, but when I break it down, Naco is actually like a lower class. It's like, you know what, I'm gonna make this one, take it to the next level, being so proud who you are. And you're gonna see beans. See that bean right there in that corner? And then there's other beans around. So Beaner, no anymore. That's my dad. He asked me to pose, and then somebody told me, hey, you know, that hand kind of resembles Hitler. Like, hell no. If you're the, you know Cuauhtémoc Blanco, the soccer player in Mexico, he used to go like that. Yeah. Okay? So, first of all, I'm not German. First of all, I never talk about World War II. 3, if I'm Latino, Mexican, if you know Cuauhtémoc Blanco, that's what I'm talking about. It's this guy. I did this series about the 2012, the end of the world. It's this guy's escaping to another planet. So before the destruction of the Earth. I'm gonna move on. Of course, ladies, world, you know, females, they have actually that creativity too. They started to build these vehicles to be able to escape the destruction of the world. And then I tried to use a lot of symbols that is related to the community or the loteria or stuff that happens. And sometimes, you know, I hear like these crazy stories about, like last time somebody told me, I'm gonna drop some W's on you. Like, what is W? Some wings. And start to use this symbol. How the series of works actually use symbol like that. And this is still part of the 2012 series, and then see how they escape. And I tried to actually use how these people will rely on their own environment to create these vehicles, okay, for survival. Okay, so I'm gonna talk a little bit about who I am, a little bit as an artist. So basically, the way it started, I came here to the United States, and I have really low expectations about myself, okay? Being from a really poor family, being an immigrant, I didn't learn English until really 2007, because I was really forced, because I moved from Laredo to San Antonio. Laredo, everyone speaks, well, yeah, a lot of people speak Spanish, so I feel so comfortable in that environment, that city. And then I moved to San Antonio, and I met the guy named Steven Carter. That white person, you want to put it that way, okay? He was really amazing. So he was like, you know, Juan, I want to learn Spanish. Like, okay. I was like, I want to learn English. He was like, okay, Juan, you speak to me in English and I speak to you in Spanish. And that's the way I started to actually, you know, find ways for me to learn English. So you see Steven Carter, he's printing on that stone over there. He's so happy. And I'm still chubby. So So being a mentor is basically something that I was introduced because of him. But also was introduced back in high school. One of the things I was telling you about, materials. Materials is really hard in Mexico to find them, especially being in a ranch. So when I came here to the United States, the first thing my brother told me, hey, Juan, there's paper. Like, where? Over there. Like, we were actually in a middle school, like next door. What do you mean next door? That's the high school. No, there's this teacher, Mr. Herrera. He actually handed out free papers, like, okay, let's go over there. So we went over there. There's like a bunch of people working, you know, on the floor, painting posters, printing shirts, printing stickers. It's like, wow, what is this? We walk in there, very shy. Hey, can we have some paper? Of course. But there's a deal about, you know, you got and get some paper. What's the deal? You have to come here after school every day. It's like, okay, I love that. So after that, guys, we were actually in middle school. We used to go to high school, print some posters for a politician. That was illegal, okay? So he used to get in trouble a lot. Just print stickers for the football games. We used to make money that way. So basically, being a mentor, guys, is essential for the community. You have to actually be a mentor in your own time. Whenever you go out there, be a mentor. Teach something. I was sharing some tips about, you know, paper. What's the name again? It starts with the Ursel. So actually, you know, I feel like still, you know, he's teaching me something. I feel like he's a mentor. We're sharing things. Collaboration too is actually important. You know, be humble. I don't mind sharing stuff about my technique as long as you actually do the same stuff. That's something you have to do. Professional careers. There's a lot of professional careers. The way I started was my parents were talking about a little bit about how you can actually sustain yourself being an artist. My parents, they were like, Mijo, I want you to be an architect. I was like, hell no. Again, I went against the flow. And my dad right now, he feels so proud of me. And I've been in museums and different places. And the last 2 months, I have been working so hard into this project that right now probably gonna become part of the Smithsonian collection. I was like, oh my God. I was like, oh my God. It's hopefully like actually there in that, you know, process. Hopefully I can be part of that. That if I make it, I'm gonna be so happy. I'm gonna make my parents happy. But there's professional careers, and one of the things that I learned is basically there's different levels of putting effort into things. There's challenges, but the deal is, you know, I never give up. With English barriers, language barriers, whatever, I was still working. I worked so hard. Even though, you know, sometimes they, hey, Juan, you said this word incorrectly, you have to fix it. It's like, I still feel proud of who I am. I always go to shows, I always go to these type of events. If they offer me something, I'll take it. There's careers out there. You have to find them. You have to work for those careers. Don't give up for those careers. Like I said, collaborate. There's other artists that want to collaborate. Feel happy what you do. I feel so happy working with other artists, with other institutions. So make sure you go to art shows because you're going to be able to meet other collectors. You're going to meet artists, educators. It's always great to be in that environment. It's always great to actually get a message from somebody. Hey, Juan, I need help here. Hey, Juan, can you do a talk to these students? Hey, Juan, this, and that. I like to get involved. I love that. I want to give back to the community. Giving back to the community, guys, there's different ways to do it. So the one thing that actually we would like to do at UTSA, that's what we call the steamroller. This is not a steamroller. This is a roll being pushed by the forklift. You're gonna see in the one at the left or the top, that's a big drum, huge drum being pushed by a forklift. So we put the paper down. So some of those my students, they're happy there. I ask them to be happy because it's a photo, right? Like anything else. When they put the print down there, we print for some of the local artists as well. And this is the whole group. Okay, this guy right here, that's Humberto. That's Richard Mendari, is actually the UTSA faculty. And then we feel so happy to have an amazing, amazing program. We always invite people to go over there and actually share some of their stories. And we always keep motivating students. And keeping motivating students, actually, I have one show that actually happens every year. It's called Print It Up. I like to give that opportunity back to the students. They need to experience actually how to feel about what, you know, showing in a professional gallery. So it's actually important to actually have that type of experiences for them. So you have we teach the students how to have the artwork, and we have live demonstrations. That's the open reception at the bottom left, and we actually invite some people from the audience to actually print. So that's us actually putting in a print. So that's amazing. And I actually volunteer at the local shelters. In I'm not sure about here in California, but in San Antonio, we have some shelters where they have immigrants from Mexico that can come here legally. You know, then now that's actually to go to the legal process, either going back to whatever the country they come from, or they actually stay here for looking for residence, something like that. But then we have these kids. I go there the last month. We have been working so hard with these kids, and you see over there how actually they're working in their blogs. We have I have a small press, and I took it over there, and you see them working, inking up, and working in that project, and I think that's. And then I'm working on a new series. This is actually the prints is gonna go into the Smithsonian, and I feel so happy. So one thing that actually I keep telling my students, keep creating. One cachito at a time, that's me. So when I do one cachitos a little bit at a time, sometimes I'm super tired working about 11, 12 hours at the university. When I go to my studio, if I just spend another half an hour in a small thing, eventually the whole month you can create a new piece. Okay, so never give up, always work for whatever you wanna get, always, keep working hard, and then you're gonna be able to get opportunities like this. And be humble, be able to actually connect with other people, give back to the community, and then make sure whenever you actually want to work in a project, there's grants, there's actually professors like me that wants to help you to get into the educational system, something like that. I can give you some feedback. I was happy to have my office open. A lot of students walk into my office to give them feedback, and I always try to feel welcome, everyone that goes there. And I'm pretty unique because I'm a harsh, instructor. Right? My students sometimes hate me, like, sir, why you give me a hard time? Don't do another school. Let's go to the next level, okay? All right. So I want to thank everyone, and then thanks for actually listening to my shenanigans here. And then if you have questions, we're gonna actually be here for you, okay? Thank you so much.